There's a secret about Apple style animation that no one talks about, and that's storyboarding. So in this video, I will show you exactly how I created a intro of an editing challenge in the Apple style. And so I won't only show you the animation process, but also the storyboarding process. Now let's jump into it. So I'm here in Milanote, and I always use this for my storyboarding. And by the way, Milanote is also the sponsor of this video, which I'm super excited about because I love their software. If you don't know what Milanote is, it is a tool for organizing creative projects. You can add links, images, notes, to-do lists, and a lot more in one place. They have some really unique features, which I will also show, but check them out. Link is in the description. Anyway, I have the script here on the left, and it really depends on the size of the project. If it's a simple project and I don't have to do a lot of animation, I just use the script and then maybe write down some notes or some ideas that I have. And then I don't even use the whole storyboarding feature. If it's a bit of a bigger project, which this was, then I do use the storyboarding. And it's really like a nice way to give a clear view of what you want to work with. And what I really like about Milanote, that it has some features that are really good for editors and animators. For example, the hex codes, which is really nice to work with. And also the columns where you can just cluster some things, a to-do list, which is also really nice. And even a font card where you can select some fonts that you want to use. And not only that, you can also have boards in boards. So in this board, for example, I have some general inspiration that I just pasted in. And these are just some things that I like. Now, this is of course all cool, but I also want to show you how to create this. So let's go through it. So for the sake of the video, I'm just going to create a new board. So let's drag that here, and I'm just going to call this Apple style storyboard. And then we can double click on that and we'll open it. You can choose a template. I'm just going to use an empty board for now. And then when you paste your script, you will see this unsorted column. And I think this is a really unique feature. I will show you in a bit why I love this feature. For now, I'm just going to drag this script to my board. So I have it here. I can look at it. I can come up with ideas based on it. Now, what I first always do is I find some general inspiration. And I do this by going to Pinterest, for example, but you can also go to Dribbble, Behance. You can also find stuff on Twitter or Instagram. And here I just select some things that I think like, okay, these could be cool for the project, but it's just like some general inspiration. But sometimes I already see some elements, for example, this. I love these buttons. I think they're really cool. And then I might use it for specific elements. Anyway, what I do is I just take a screenshot using my Mac. But if you're on Windows, you can also just copy the image. Then we go to the storyboard. And if we now paste it, it will be in the unsorted also. And what's nice about this is I don't have to think where to place it, where to put it. I can just paste it all in the unsorted. So I can just continue going through my inspiration. Maybe I see something more. I can copy this. I can paste it. And again, will be my unsorted. So this is really quick. And why I like this is because of workflow, because I don't like to already be busy with how this board is going to look like. No, I just want to focus on the inspiration. This also looks super dope, right? Oh, love it. Copy this, paste it, and we already have some inspiration. And now you can just drag it in wherever you want. We can just put it over each other. And again, we can use this as general inspiration, or we can even use some elements in here. I also really like these colors, so maybe I want to work with these colors. Now I'm looking for some other stuff. And once you have a bit of like a general style, you also want to go through the keywords. And if I look at my script, there's a few things in here. So like 8 editors, I want to do something with this, maybe with the $1,000 prize. And also here's a twist. The end results are wildly different. I think the keyword wild is really cool. We can do something with that. And to give you an example, I just searched for wild or wild design, and I already see this really cool stuff here. And then when you open it in Pinterest, you can see also other inspiration. I think this also looks really cool, right? And maybe we can create something like this. So we can copy this over and paste it again, and it will be in the unsorted. In this case, I want to drag it already because I'm gonna use this for our storyboard. And also with the $1,000 prize, maybe I'm gonna search for like a credit card design, something with money. I really like how these cards look. So let's copy this too, paste it, there we go. And already put it a bit in the order. Maybe I search for a breakdown. Maybe for the breakdown, we can use some, this looks really cool. Maybe we can do something like this. And again, these styles are all over the place, but what we can do is basically use this for these styles and then use this for the elements. So we already got a few things. Now what we can even do is select them. I can align them to the vertical centers so they're nicely aligned, and I can connect them and it will just have a line between it. Then I can also add some notes to it. So for example here, what I want to do is have like the cards sliding up. Can also use the drawing feature where we can draw on something. For example, I want like a spotlight around this, and we can move this of course or delete it again. Let me add a quick note to this spotlight. We can also hold Alt and then drag this out and then just type in breakdown, blueprint, effect, So these nodes are nicely floating around. We can just put them wherever we want. Now I want to organize this a bit better. So we can also select these, right click, and then do group into column. And they'll be nicely into a column, and we can call this inspo. You don't have to put it in like a card like this. We can also put this in a separate board if we want to. And you can do that by right clicking and convert to board. And then it will just be like a nice board already with the name. As you can see, it works really simple. Now let's also add some of our colors. And we can even click on the color and color pick it from our inspiration, which is really nice. And why this is important is because I see a lot of editors that have their colors and fonts all over the place. They use like 200 different fonts and colors in their edit. And in my opinion, that makes it a bit messy, right? So we can literally just have a few colors that we're gonna work with. Maybe this darker blue, and then maybe also with a off-white-ish, something like this. And now later on, we can just copy these hex codes, which is really nice. Now you know how to make these storyboards. Let's go back to the storyboard I made before. By the way, if you wanted to try Milanote yourself, it is available for free with no time limit. You can sign up using the link in the description down below. So now I'm here in After Effects and I have my voiceover already ready in After Effects. Now what I like to do is to keep my Milanote on the left and to see a bit like what I wanted to have in the animation. And also this is not set in stone. Sometimes I get other ideas and then I still change it up. But let's start with this, with the cards popping up. Imagine this. So let's start with this text. Imagine this. Let me just type it. Imagine this. Let me change this font to SF Pro medium. Let's make this a bit bigger. And then of course, center this. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna right click, layer cells, gradient overlay, add a bit of texture to this. Let's reverse this and also change the opacity to maybe like 27%. I also want to animate this. So let's go to animate, position, and then animate opacity. Opacity to 0 and position to something like 150. Go to the range selector, go to the advanced tab, and let's change this to ramp up. The ease low to 100%, and then we can nicely animate it using the offset. So let's set the keyframe on the offset -100. We go like 1 second further and we'll set it to 100%. So we already have a cool animation. Let's set this to quarter. We can watch this, and I'm also going to turn off the audio because I don't want to hear myself 200 times. We already have this cool animation in my opinion. I like it. I also want this in a different color. So let's just select that. Let's go to our properties and change the fill to a orangey color because it's my brand color now. And going back to our Milanote, we also have the hex code here, so we can copy that over, making sure that we always use the same orange. And as you can see, this already looks really clean. Now I want the Apple Memojis popping up. Of course, we can just search like a Apple Memoji pack. They exist. They're also in Figma that you can use or export. But the cool thing is using ChatGPT, you can also generate them. Hi ChatGPT, I want you to generate 8 Apple Memojis, all from different races and different genders. Make sure they're on a transparent background. And there you go, you have some Apple Memojis. They're not official Apple Memojis, they're copyrighted, but we can definitely use this. So just save this, we can call our folder assets. Let's put it in there. Now we can just import this, and basically what you can do is in Photoshop, cut them all out and have separate PNGs. But you can also just in After Effects, mask one of them and then duplicate it by hitting Command D or Control D on Windows, double clicking on the mask and moving that, then doing the same thing, duplicating it, double clicking on the mask and moving it. And you just have to do this 8 more times. And the cool thing is that I might want to use these later anyway. We're not just doing it for one animation. Now we have 8 Apple Memojis and we can turn those into cards. Now I'm going to create a quick card, and I do that by using the rounded rectangle tool. And let's just drag here, make sure nothing is selected, maybe something like this. I'm going to turn the fill into a linear gradient and the stroke is fine. Now I'm going to go to the selection tool and I'm going to change this gradient to be more soft, something like this. And the other one, I'm going to maybe drag something like this. And I'm going to change the fill colors. So let's make that maybe like dark orange. And then the other one brighter, maybe something like this. I do want it to be a bit more rounded. So let's increase the roundness to 50. And there you go. We have a clean and nice looking card. Now we can add these basically on top of the card. So let's move this. There we go. And then I can link this to the card. Now in the end animation, I want to have 8 cards of these and like have them fold out or stack out in some way. And in my inspiration, I actually found this really cool card, and this is more horizontal. I don't think it's fitting for our Apple Memojis. And that's why I went with more of these like vertical cards, almost like a playing card deck. So the only thing I have to do now is duplicate this shape layer a few times. And again, Command D, Control D on Windows, just dragging it out. And ideally I want this to be nicely aligned. Now I'm doing this a bit on the eye because it's really difficult to align this like perfectly. Just make sure that this Apple Memoji is with the right card. In this case, it's layer number 9. And then we can do the same with the other ones. What I like to do is just make sure that this is above the layer that we want to move it with, and then drag that here. Then I'm gonna link that, and the same for the others. Now that they're all linked, I want to animate them. So I'm gonna select all the cards while holding Shift. I'm gonna press P for position, and let's set a keyframe here. Let's go a bit to the front, maybe 1 second before that. And I'm gonna go to the Align tool, Composition, and I'm gonna center them all in the center. So they will basically fold out like this. Now the top card is already visible, and we also have to animate that one in. And with this one, I'm just gonna move it from the bottom, and I'll fade it in by using the T for transparency, setting a keyframe, dragging this out, setting this to 0, and then maybe having the Memoji pop up. The anchor point, however, is wrong, so we have to move that. Let's use the pen behind tool for that, and let's set this to the center. Press S for scale, set a keyframe, drag this out, put this to 0. I'm also gonna make sure that this is bouncy. You can use an expression for this or use a external plugin like Motion Tools. So this will make it bounce. Let's go to the shape layer, press U to see our keyframes. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move this position a bit more to the left, make sure that there's another position keyframe so it's a bit stationary. And then let's ease our keyframe. So hit F9 on our keyboard, go to the graph editor, and make sure that this is like easing in, right? So it goes quite quick in the beginning and then it's like smooths out. And then for the next animation, select all these position keyframes. So we can just select them all, holding Shift, clicking on the first one, clicking on the last one, pressing P for position to just see the position keyframes. Let's select all these position keyframes. I'm just gonna ease them on both sides. Maybe I'm gonna even drag these out by holding Alt. And basically what I want to do is make sure that the other cards are not visible yet. So just the top one. And that's actually really easy. We can just select all of them and hit Alt or hold Alt and then do left bracket, so it will cut them off. So we already have this really clean animation. The only thing I want to do is make sure that the text, once the card comes in, also disappears. And to do this, I'm just gonna hit P for position, set a keyframe, and once this is here, let's move this up. This will be a nice match cut. I want to, of course, easy ease this. Graph editor, and make sure that this is nice and smooth. And press T for opacity, and what I want to do is also fade it out, right? So make sure that it goes from 100% to 0. What we can even do is hit P for position and move this a bit, so it basically starts a bit earlier with the animation. And as you can see, this animation is all really smooth in my opinion. Now I want to turn these cards into a line. So let's select all of the cards again. Let's go a bit further and let's go to the Align tool and make sure it's aligned in the center. And we already have a nice animation here. And what I also want to do is select all the rectangles here in the layer contents by selecting the first one, holding Shift, and selecting the last one. And then we can set a keyframe for the size. So let's go and start here, set a keyframe for the size, go a bit further, and then unlink this and setting this to 0. Now this will look really ugly because our memojis will still be visible. But what we can do now, after we've done this animation, we can basically select all of our memojis. And by the way, quick tip, we can just type in here PNG and then we'll have all the memojis. Then select one of these and use the track matte feature to change it to the shape layer. It's really easy. You just every time choose the shape layer below the Apple Memoji and you know which one that is because it's grayed out. So just do it like this. And we do that a few times. Now this will also turn all the shape layers invisible. So let's remove our PNG search. And let's turn them all back on. Now nothing will be changed until we see the animation where it will mask all of our memojis. Now we can also easy ease this animation. Let's see what it will look like first. Let's select all of our layers by hitting Command A and then type in size. So we can select these and hit F9 on your keyboard. And then you can also easy ease them in the way that you want. And as you can see, this looks really cool. Now I want to have a line shown up. So let's create a quick line, go to the pen tool, and I'm just gonna fake it basically by creating a new line, holding shift to keep it straight, make sure nothing is selected, make sure the fill is off, let's set that to none, make sure the stroke is set to a solid color, and 3 pixels should be fine, maybe a bit more just to make sure that it's filling the space. So select the shape layer, make it a bit thicker. And what I can just do is press T for transparency, set a keyframe, and make sure this fades in once this animation is done. Now I can also add a quick deep glow to this, and I don't want this to be that bright, so let's set this to like 0.05. That's already bright enough in my opinion. And then let's add a text to this. We can do $1,000 because it's $1,000 on the line. Now I do want this white. Let's change this to white. And I also want to have that layer style over it again. So layer style gradient overlay. And again, go into the gradient overlay, change that to reverse and change the opacity to something really low, something like 27. And let's move this. And then we'll just do the same animation. You can copy or paste this, but what we can actually do is also go to this animator, go to the text, and we already have this animator. And you can drag this to the effects and presets panel. And once you did that, then you can actually reuse this effect. So I named it character up. As you can see, user preset. We can just drag that on, and it's really nice. We already have the animation. Now, of course, it still needs a background, and it also needs some continuous movements because there's quite a lot of like stationary shots here. And the key to have like smooth animations, in my opinion, is to have continuous movement. And we can really easily do this by creating a new null. So go to layer new null object. Then what you want to do is select the layers that don't have a parent yet. And once we select those, we can actually parent these to the null. And now we can add some animations to this. So first of all, I might even like move this anyway to make sure that this is nicely centered. Now the rest won't be, so maybe I'll move it. Let's see. Here it's fine. Maybe I'm gonna put a P for position here and make sure that once this animation is done, this is nicely centered. Probably something like this. Then I think the line here is also fine. Yeah, nice. Just have to ease this. And then what I also want to do is I'm gonna create another null, layer new null. And I'm gonna use that one just to scale with. So we can parent this one to this other null, press S for scale. And then basically what you do is make sure that this is just for the scaling. And this one we just keep in the center. And what we can do, for example, set a keyframe here, set a keyframe here, and then make sure that it scales up a bit. So there's a bit of movement here already. And then maybe here it zooms out again. Then maybe here it zooms in again. And then maybe we'll zoom it out again. And again, of course, select all of these keyframes and hit F9 on them. Let's move this a bit. I think this one is a bit too much. So let's remove that. And as you can see, we already have a really nice animation. There's a lot of movement happening and it's really entertaining to watch, in my opinion. Now, again, it needs some background, but we're already getting somewhere. Now for the next part, I want to do a match cut. So I'm just gonna set an R for a rotation keyframe. We can move this a bit further. So maybe it goes to something like this. Again, hitting F9 on your keyboard to make sure that this is nice and smooth. So it goes like this. Maybe we'll make it even a bit more rough. And we can already start this keyframe a bit earlier, again, to make sure that there's continuous movement. Now, of course, we have to fade this out. We can also add a layer on top of it. And by the way, I'm skipping some parts because it's just adding more text, more layers, doing the same things. Otherwise, this video will also be way too long for YouTube. And if you want to see the deep dives, then just join the Fullstack Editor Club. Link is in the description. Anyway, this is the card where we're busy with. And going to the next part, I want the roaring tiger because it's wild, right? And for this, I actually recorded this Apple emoji on my iPhone. I'm going to align this a bit better. And the cool thing is that once we now link this, while this is straight and the rest is not, it will move with the null object. So it will turn the opposite direction. And that's also how we can do a really nice match cut. We can either fade it out or cut it off. I am gonna fade it out. So I'm just gonna create a layer new solid, and let's make that just black. Okay, move that below our tiger and then press T for transparency and basically just fading this in. Once we do that, this will fade in this background. And then what I also want to do is fade in the tiger. So press T for transparency, set a keyframe and drag that out. And once we time this right, you will see that you get this really nice match cut. We need to move these keyframes a bit. So it's basically on the peak, this happens. Maybe it goes a bit, move this a bit. And of course, with some motion blur, this will look way better. And we can even make this tiger pop up. but I think this is already cool. Then I'm gonna add the text wildly different, but we can also copy a text that we made before. We could duplicate the $1,000. Make sure it's nicely centered. So go into the transform and let's reset this. I'm gonna unlink it, reset it, and I'm gonna type here wildly different. Perfect. It's not perfectly aligned. Let's fix that first. And I also want to make it a bit bigger. So I can just scale it up. It's a bit hard to read, as you can see. And that's basically because the tiger is quite bright. We can just like dial the tiger down so it's a bit dark in the beginning. It's a bit in the background. Now, once it roars, I think we need to move this emoji movie a bit. So press U on our keyframes and let's move these. And then let's move this layer because I want it to roar a bit more quick. We can also link the text to the null, so it moves with it. So we can move it a bit earlier. That's very nice. Now we maybe want to scale the null a bit here, so it like zooms in, for example. Once it roars, I want it to, of course, move to the sides. There's multiple ways to do this. You can also mask it. So we can also go to the rectangle tool and then just mask wildly. Duplicate this layer, Command D or Control D on Windows. And then we still have this other layer open, so we can set this to subtract. It's really simple. We just set a keyframe for the position on both. And basically once it roars, it moves to the sides. This one to this side and this one to that side. And of course, easy ease this. This is really dope. Now I also want, while this is happening, to have the emoji or tiger scale up and the opacity to go up too. So basically it looks something like this, which in my opinion looks already really dope. What I don't like, however, is that I also want some distortion in this text. Now you can use bolts or you can use CC lens for that. Let's see. Let's try CC lens and let's change the size to be a bit bigger. And then I want the convergence to be on -100. So it basically wraps around a bit. Now I can even change the size so it even bends a bit more. And then I can just copy this effect and paste it on the other text. As you can see, it gives this really cool effect. Now for the next animation, I want these trophies and I want this style specifically because I think it looks really dope. Now I can of course make this in 3D. It will take a lot of time. So we're going to use AI for this. And I will have a separate tutorial on this. So basically now I want to transition to the next layer. And we can just use a circle for this. So let's use a ellipse. Let's make sure that nothing is selected and let's drag this, hold shift to make sure it's circular. And then we can go to the selection tool and move this up, something like this. Very nice. Then we can even set the fill to black, stroke to 0, and then press S for scale and set a keyframe. Basically what I want to do is once it roars, it's basically coming from the mouth or somewhat from the mouth. And again, with motion blur, this will look really cool. And there's no background now, but if we have a background, you'll really see this. For example, I have this cool gradient background. I can use the circle that we just created as a track mat. And then once this opens, as you can see, it will have this cool effect. Now we can add the trophies, which look like this. I created these using AI. I will have a separate tutorial on this, how I created this. The only thing I want to do is add a extract to this. Let's make sure that the others are not selected. I'm also going to do a quick rough mask and then just change the black point. It will make it look a bit ugly. As you can see, if we change this to full, you can see that it's not properly keyed out, especially at the edges. A quick and easy fix is adding a roughen edges to this. As you can see, I just changed these settings. So border 27, edge sharpness 1, fractal influence to 0. And basically what this will do, it will smooth the edges a bit. And as you can see, feathers it a bit. It's still not perfect if you really zoom in, but again, you have to really zoom in. If we zoom out, you'll see that it still has this really cool effect. Now, what's cool is that this trophy is rotating. So basically what I want is to move it from the right to the left. So I'm just going to press P for position, set a keyframe and drag this out and then move it to the right. And basically we'll just move in the screen. And of course we have to easy ease this. I want this to be really, really smooth. Go to the graph editor, select the last keyframe and drag this out. So we have this really nice smooth animation. We can also add some motion blur to this, of course. Now we might want to blend it in a bit better using a like dark mask around this. Or what we can even do is create a black solid and then using a ellipse, like dragging this a bit, pressing F for feather, then feathering this by a lot, pressing T for transparency, and then making this side a bit darker and then maybe scaling it up a bit just to make the scene look a bit nicer, right? And these subtle things, as you can see, will really make this trophy pop. Of course, we need to add some text animations, but this is nothing too crazy. So we have the trophies, we have the awards. Now I want to have the cards pop up with something like this, and also want to have a cool 3D cursor flying in. That's all I want. I just want a 3D cursor. So let's just create a new solid. I'm gonna make it white for now. And let's cut that in. So we can even have a match cut where this trophy moves to the left, and then like the rest of the elements also move from right to left. And what we can actually do is select all of the cards that we had before and just duplicate them. Which I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select them all by clicking on the first one, holding shift, and then clicking on the last one, duplicating that and moving this all the way to the top. Now that we have our cards here, let's move them in a nice circular way. And for this effect, I'm going to create a new null object. So layer new null object, and basically press R for rotation. But before I do, let's move this a bit like down, something like this. Then select all the cards. So holding shift and then just selecting them like that. Then I'm going to align them to the center so they're all at the same spot. Then maybe like something like here. And then basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to link every time a shape to it and just rotate it a bit. So a bit like this. Next one. And so on and so on. Now, once you've done this, you already have a really cool effect and you can keep it like this. But I want the cards to stay upright. And for this, I created a cool expression. ChatGPT created it. And basically, it's a simple expression, this comp layer and then null 29, which is the null transform rotation. So it will basically use the same rotation as this. And by doing so, it will make it straight. And we can also just copy and paste this expression to all these shape layers. Again, pressing R for rotation, holding Alt, clicking on the stopwatch and pasting it. There we go. And as you can see, they will stay nice and straight. And if we now rotate it, they will stay straight, which is a really cool effect in my opinion. So we can now set a keyframe and go a bit further, and have them pop in, something like this. Now to light them up, it's really simple. We can just add a deep glow to the ones that we want to light up. And then we can just keyframe the exposure. You might also want to add a curves to it just to make sure that the colors stay a bit nice, something like this. And again, we can just set a keyframe on the exposure going up. Now there's two more things, the cursor and making it look nice. For the cursor, I'm actually gonna create a new comp, something like this, press OK. And I have this 3D pointer, which you won't be able to see now because it's laying flat. So press R for rotation. And I downloaded this from Sketchfab. Press S for scale so we can scale it up. And as you can see, we have this nice 3D pointer. And we can do whatever we want with this. It's really that simple. If we make it transparent, you can see it a bit better. And we can, for example, have it fly in with a P for position. And of course, we also want to set a keyframe for the rotational values. Maybe drag this out. Let's move it towards the camera, maybe a bit lower, maybe a bit rotated. So it will fly in. And then, of course, I want it to be upright. And you can also change the anchor point, but I don't think that should be needed if we just move it a bit like this. And again, maybe like have it a bit like rotated to make it a bit more cool. And again, just select the keyframes and then maybe ease it a bit. So it goes like this. Whee! Very good and very nice. And of course, we can add some motion blur later on. And you can't do that here because it's advanced 3D. However, there is a cool effect, which I'll show you in a bit. So we have the cursor coming in, and then maybe we want it to click, and we do that by hitting a keyframe for scale. So press S for scale, and then maybe like scaling it down and scaling it up again. Copy and paste that keyframe. So it's like, maybe this goes a bit too slow. Nice. And again, we can just go back to our main comp and add this comp to that. And what's cool about this now is that we can add a CC force motion blur over this. And as you can see, that will add some motion blur to it. We of course have to align it a bit and things like that, but we already have this cool animation. Now to finish it up, I want to make it look nice. And that's by adding some adjustment layers. So let's start with the beginning. I want to, for example, create a new adjustment layer and just add like a soft vignette over this just to blend things a bit. And that will already make it look a bit nicer. Before and after, as you can see, it will just add a bit of moodiness to it. Also here, I think that will look really nice. Then of course, I want to add motion blur to everything. So I'm just going to select everything and hit the motion blur icon. I think it also looks cool in this scene. Maybe I'm going to even add some like edge light to it or a CC lens. So what we can do is duplicate this adjustment layer here. Hit Alt left bracket. So this adjustment layer only starts when this scene starts. So that's around here. We remove the vignette and I'm going to add a CC lens to this because I think here with the cards coming up, having some distortion can actually make this scene look way nicer. Let's increase the size so we don't see the black borders anymore. And then let's go to where the cards come in. As you can see, it's way too much now. So what we need to do is change the convergence to maybe something like this, like 16. Also make sure that this is then below the vignette, otherwise it will also move the vignette with it. And we can also make blurred edges, and then you get something like this. A huge shout out to Milanote for sponsoring this video. I love their software. Their link is in the description, so do use it for all your storyboarding. If you want to learn more about this editing style, then do join the Fullstack Editor Club. A link of that is also in the description. Then of course, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for all the support, and then I'll see you next time. Bye bye.